Christmas, just like the one I used to know, where the treetops glisten and the children listen to hear the sleigh bells in the snow. All right, Ben. Well, I'm dreaming of a white Christmas with every Christmas card I write. I didn't write a damn Christmas card this year. The company did, but not me. Be merry and bright. You know, I was listening to this music. Let me turn this stuff off. I was listening to this music all the way from my building in the elevator. I think I woke up the whole damn building. I'm like, damn, I woke up like.
Wow. You're in a great mood.
Well,
I
think the Christmas spirit jumped into me last night.
That's right. Got that Christmas spirit going on.
Yeah, I mean, I went through it all. I saw it all in my head last night. I saw Sam Bankman fly into the United States. Oh my God, he's been whisked off to a prison. Now it's going to be interesting to see.
Well, he's not in a prison yet.
Yeah, no, he is. He's actually in the federal prison right now. But here's the thing: he has to go in front of a magistrate, a court, federal judge, and then it'll be interesting to see if the judge grants him bail. Because you remember, when Madoff made off with everyone's money, he actually granted bail, and they put a little thing around his ankle. But actually, he was only allowed to stay in his home. He couldn't go out unless he had, like, proceedings to go to or something like that. It's not like he could go shopping or buy another Rolex or anything like that. He had to, like, stay home. And if the judge does grant the fraud man bail, then he'll be out on bail. But he'll probably be confined to wherever it is that he's going to be staying. I think he should stay in jail for stealing. And then Eleanor, she's like, well, you know, Rob, what's funny is all these little thieves, once one goes down, they all start, allegedly, they all start singing like birds. And now Eleanor, she's screaming at the top of her lungs, but she's going to actually be charged. I saw that the SEC and the feds, all that, they are going to charge her, and she's getting charged. And there's other ones that are coming.
Yeah, it's the.
They're all going to get charged.
It's the whole Alameda research team and the FTX team.
Yeah,
just the top. I guess the top executives there.
I'm just hoping that they find a lot of these people's money, because I can't believe that they were able to spend that kind of money in such a short period of time. Billions of dollars. I just don't believe that they sold, unless they
purchased property.
Not only just property,
they bought off people.
Well, not only that. Well, that's true, and I think they should all return the money. But I think as well, they were playing in the stock market, from what I understand. There were money to be invested in trades, and I'm sure they lost money in that as well.
I don't know much about that.
And that's what I'm hearing. I don't know. But I'll tell you something. The one thing also that I'm hearing is that you know, Zelensky came into town wow, was that a show? He literally got off the plane that the United States flew in on, and he was wearing his army fatigues. I wonder if he ever changes his underwear. I wonder if that guy ever even changes his clothes. He's always looking the same. But he looked like a grumpy old man.
It's a shtick, right? That's like a thing. That's
disgusting. And now there's a lot. I mean,
you don't stand with Ukraine?
Well, I mean,
I don't stand with Ukraine. Fuck Ukraine.
I stand for. I don't like war. Period.
No, I don't like war at all.
And I'm not standing for Russia either. I mean, both of them are fighting, but you know, leave them alone. Let them fight their own wars. You know, and for us to get so heavily involved right now into this war is crazy. And now Vladimir Putin on Wednesday actually delivered remarks to the Russian Defense Ministry. He is not happy. And I got to tell you something. Rob and I, we've talked about this over and over and over again, and we've talked about how it's almost like the United States is pushing this war to happen. It just hasn't happened big enough yet. So now the United States wants to push it a little bit further because they can keep on printing money. It's obvious. Look at how much money they're printing right now.
I mean, my thing is this: is like, what's the benefit for an all-out nuclear war if it goes there, right? What's the benefit if the U.S. or portions of the U.S. gets hit? Because think about it, they'd hit Alaska, they'd hit D.C., right? They'd hit most of.
Well, it'll eventually come into wherever we're at, because wherever you're at, you can't escape a nuclear. You can't.
No.
You can't.
No.
And let me tell you, Putin now has vowed to increase. In fact, there's now satellite images that are showing silos being loaded with hypersonic missiles with
Seriously?
nuclear warheads putting on the end. And Putin now has vowed to actually increase the readiness of Russian nuclear arsenal as the U.S. Uniparty actually votes to donate $100 billion to the Ukraine war efforts. So now the U.S. is openly engaging in a war against Russia at this point. So the United States now has gotten seriously involved, flying in the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, into the United States on a U.S. plane, and then giving him $45 billion more dollars and Patriot missiles and other munitions. Listen, Putin said yesterday, that Russia needs to continue to support and improve readiness of its nuclear weapons. Go figure. And we need to continue to support and to improve the readiness of our nuclear units, is what he said. And this is the main guarantee of our sovereignty. Remember, we were just talking about this yesterday. Catherine Fitz was talking about sovereignty. So he says this is the main guarantee of our sovereignty and territorial integrity. A strategic priority is the overall balance of power in the world, is what he told the meeting of the Russian Defense Ministry Board in Moscow yesterday. And he also accused NATO countries of using their military potential against Russia. He says it's well known that today the military potential and opportunities of virtually all the main countries of NATO are being used against Russia, he said. And Putin claimed that Moscow's strategic adversaries have been planning to disintegrate, weaken, and divide Russia. And this is what he's been saying all along when he actually surrounded Ukraine way back before they started invading Ukraine. And so Putin, in his mind, and whether it's right or wrong, I'm not Putin and I'm not in Russia, so I can't really say. I can just tell you from what experience and from wording and from the news that we get. And from what I'm hearing is that Putin is afraid that they're going to take half of Russia from him, because that's what Zelensky's wanted all along.
Yeah.
And he says our strategic adversaries have the goal of disintegrating and weakening and dividing our country. And this has been going on for centuries. And that's true. That is very true. Russia is too big, as they think, a country that possesses a threat to someone. Therefore, it needs to be broken down, cut down a little, he said. But it looks to me like the United States wants to break him down, period. Patriot missiles, Rob.
Yeah, my entire family already knows that one. My entire family, my uncle, my cousins, my aunt, my grandparents, they all served in the Marine Corps. My uncle right now, he's retired from the Marine Corps, 32 years. Now he's working for Northrop Grumman, in Maryland at BWI Airport. And I've reached out to him. I said, what's going on with this? Why, what's going to happen with this war? And what he told me, and what my cousins told me, who are active duty right now at Camp Pendleton, California, right there in Oceanside. They're both very high-rank officials, gunnery sergeant and master sergeants. and they're actually concerned. These are individuals who are pretty. They're grunts, so they're infantry, right? They're part of the infantry team or whatever they consider it, infantry squad, right? And you know, they're even concerned because what they're saying is that this could lead to like, you know, the annihilation of many countries once, this nuclear war gets kicked off. And they're totally against it, you know.
No, I totally agree. I mean, it's a little shaky right now
Yeah.
because it looks like it's just sitting. We've been talking about this. I've been talking about this now for a couple months. And
3 to 4 months already.
yeah, have we been on here that long? No, we haven't been on here
Like
that
3
long.
months.
Couple
We've been here
months.
for 3
Couple
months.
months.
No, we've been doing this for about 3 months.
Really?
I think so. It
Oh,
was
wow.
maybe not. Maybe
I know they're putting on
maybe
a.
it feels longer than what I think. I don't know.
Well, today I know I hear them back there. They're actually putting the double doors on now. So, and I walked in there yesterday, and I'm like envisioning us just loving it, loving it. Now the LED wall display, I'm really not happy about. Of course, yeah,
Why?
you pay to have it expedited because they have to make these things to your specifications.
Oh,
And
really?
so now we're hearing it's another 2 weeks out, but it's okay. We're going to get in there anyway. We're going to be in there regardless. And I cannot wait to get into the big room where we can actually move around and do the things that we do. And instead of us all being on one camera, flipping back and forth, we'll be on many cameras. We've been talking a lot about the dollar.
Yeah.
And how the dollar is used as a weapon to take down other currencies, right?
Right.
And smaller nations, including a dozen in Asia, have been experimenting with de-dollarization. And corporates around the world now are selling an unprecedented portion of their debt in local currencies, wary of the further dollars strain. And no one is saying that the greenback will be dethroned anytime soon from its reign as the principal medium of exchange, but calls for a peak dollar now have many times proven premature. But not too long ago, it was almost unthinkable for countries to even explore payment mechanisms like, some way to get out from underneath the SWIFT or the Fed or the reserve currency that bypass the U.S. currency, or like I said, the SWIFT network that underpins the global financial system. And now the sheer strength of the dollar, it uses under President Joe Biden to enforce sanctions on Russia this year, and other new technological innovations are together encouraging these nations to start chipping away at its dominance.
Yeah.
And these Treasury officials are declining to comment on these developments, which is interesting. And this will simply intensify the efforts in Russia and China to try to manage their part of the world economy without our dollar. And this is what Paul Tucker, a former deputy governor of the Bank of England and Bloomberg, just predicted in a podcast yesterday. And he was writing in a newsletter last week. John Malden, an investment strategist and president of Millennium Wave Advisors, with more than 3 decades of market experience, said that the Biden administration made an error in weaponizing the U.S. dollar and the global payment system. U.S. investors and nations to diversify their holdings outside of the United States, is what Malden said. So, this is about, are they going to have a Santa Claus rally? It's interesting because I saw 2.2 trillion going into the repo last night, or 2.2, and I don't know. It doesn't look too. It looks like Santa Claus ain't coming to town.
Well, you just got to look at it. I mean, dollar-denominated, bond sales by non-financial companies, right? They're actually down 37%. It's
a bond company.
It's a
mutual
record
funds, bonds, all of it's down.
Well, what I'm referring to is what you just shared from Bloomberg.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we're facing a global record low of 37% of non-financial institutions of non-financial banks. So I mean, bond sales are down. Are you noticing a trend?
Yeah.
Countries right now are or exiting out of dollar-denominated assets, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, the dollar
Yeah.
has actually strengthened about 7% this year, which is on track for its biggest annual advance since 2015.
Yeah.
And that's according to the Bloomberg Index of the dollar. And the gauge actually reached a record high back in September as the dollar appreciation sent everything from the British pound to the Indian rupee to its historic lows. So this is a huge headache, right? So the dollar strength is a huge headache for Asian nations who seen prices of food just soar. You talk about inflation. In other countries outside of the United States, inflation is so high. And that's why it makes me sick when I hear Biden talking about how our inflation is only this high when you got these other nations this high. But you know who's causing this inflation? We are. The great state of the United States of America is causing the inflation because they're putting so much pressure on these other currencies. So, this is why you've got Sri Lanka is a case in point, for instance, defaulting on its debt for the first time ever as a soaring greenback has now crippled their nation's ability to pay up. And Vietnamese officials at one point blamed the dollar appreciation for fuel supply struggles. And, hence moves as India's deal with the United Arab Emirates, which accelerates long-running campaigns to transact more in the rupee and set up trade settlement agreements that actually bypass the U.S. currency. And then look what you just had. You just had Xi over in Saudi Arabia. Same thing. They're getting out from underneath these petrodollars, and they're going to start using the Chinese dollars for oil. So, while all these measures may have a limited market impact short term, the end result may be an eventual weakening of demand of the dollar. So that the Canadian dollar, the Chinese, all these currencies right now are just waiting to bust out. And I'm telling you, that's why I think that we're going to wake up one morning. I've said this over and over and over. I've repeated in my sleep. We're going to wake up one morning. We're going to find out the bottom of the dollar has dropped out over in Asia. That's where the majority of our creditors are, and that's where, this mass exodus is going to begin. And several economies are now chipping away a dollar use as a byproduct of efforts to actually build new payment networks, a campaign that predates the surging greenback. For instance, Malaysia, India, Indonesia, Singapore, and Thailand, they've all set up payments for transactions between each other. So now they'll be doing this back and forth with each other. They're literally, Taiwanese can actually pay with a QR code system that's linked with Japan now. So they've been doing this and envisioning this and implementing this for a long time. That's why this executive order 14067 that Biden signed, that's now in effect, it clearly states in that order that in order for the United States to remain the dominating currency, that a digital counterpart is needed. So, what is the United States up to behind this digital currency?
Did you hear what Russia said?
No. What did they say?
It said, and this is coming in from their financial council. It says that Russia is likely to buy the yuan on the FX market in 2023, and keep this as a reminder that Russia will use the digital ruble for settlements with China in 2023. So these countries have already and are starting to use more hands-on experience with a form of CBDC or a form of their digital currency, right? So don't think that the U.S., for those who are listening, we're not going to go digital. You're not going to get trapped in central bank digital currency because you have some superpowers like Russia, China, right, and many other countries right now looking to start settlement in digital currency, right?
Yeah.
Their digital currency, whether it's the digital yuan, whether it's the digital ruble, right? The U.S. is next.
Yeah, I'm telling you, this isn't. I mean, okay, it's a war, and there's bombs bursting over in Ukraine, and things are happening over in these places. But when it really comes down to it, you know what it really is? It's a currency war that's happening. Everybody is trying to get out from underneath the dollar. And many countries feel that they can do transactions directly, bilaterally, using their local currencies, which I think is good for the world to have a much more balanced use of currencies and a payment systems. So this is why it's so important that you start positioning yourself and diversing. Get into precious metals. Have something that you can exchange for more value later on. You can actually exchange it for more value later on. It's proven. We started buying gold. I started buying it over 40 years ago, and look where it's at now. And it will continue to rise because as the dollar eventually collapses, when the dollar bottoms out, that's when you're going to see gold prices, silver prices, all of these escalate. And speaking of that, I'll tell you something. There was an interview done with Peter Schiff. And Peter Schiff recently appeared on the Jay Martin Show. And during the interview, Peter explains how the private sector can ultimately lead the world back to a gold-backed standard. Remember, we talked about this, Reverend Mooney. Reverend Mooney, a Republican Mooney in Virginia, has actually put a bill up. This is the second time he's put up a bill. And in this bill, it clearly talks about anchoring the dollar to gold so that we would have a gold-backed dollar, just like Russia and all these other countries are already envisioned and already starting to do. And let me tell you, early in the discussion, Peter talks about investing, saying that people need to be in something besides cash. And he says people have to go somewhere. He says, I think you just can't be in cash because all these governments, notice he says governments, and he's not talking about the United States. He's talking about worldwide. So everything that we've been talking about, this is exactly what Peter is talking about. He says because of all these governments, they're just printing too much money. And the inflation problem is worldwide. And it's because all these central banks made the same mistake. Monkey see, monkey do the same as you. And that's exactly what they did. And the world's central banks basically followed the lead of guess who? The Great Federal Reserve. It's like the Wizard of Oz, the wizard. Anyway, so we kind of, he says, corrupted the monetary policy of the whole world. And this is what we were just talking about. It's the United States that actually started this currency war, and they're not done. Believe me, there's a plan behind all this. So this digital currency, this order 14067 that was brought out of the blue by Biden, who probably doesn't even know what the hell it is, he signed that executive order because it was placed in front of him, and they told him, you better sign it or we're going to take Hunter Biden's laptop.
You better sign it right now.
I mean, you sign it now. But, and it's like, what the hell? Yeah. So anyway, listen what he says. He says, and this is what this show is saying. It says, as the U.S. interest rates are to zero, other major central banks, what did they do, Rob? They did the same. And in fact, some implemented negative interest rate policies to get their rates below America. But Peter said that the dollar's status as the world's reserve currency, imagine this, says it won't last forever.
He's so true. He's spot on.
He's right. This is exactly what we talk about. He says, I think that the world is going to reject the dollar, and it's already happening. And Peter noted that the de-dollarization efforts in many countries due to the fact that the U.S. has weaponized the dollar and used it as a foreign policy tool. Remember, right in the beginning I talked about this, that the United States, a bomb, a submarine, a plane, that's not the weapon. The weapon is the U.S. dollar.
Yeah.
That's where we're at. We're in a currency war. Wake up. The purchasing power of the dollar is being destroyed right in front of your eyes, and the most of you aren't even paying attention. Call us at 800-853-7534. That's our call center. Or 323-380-5485. Or you can just chime in, comment. Tell us to give you a call back. We'll call you back. We got people always checking to see if there's people writing in, need callbacks, want to talk. Give us a call. We're here to help you, show you a way out. And let me tell you what else Peter said. Peter said this. Peter said, when the dollar falls from its peak, Americans will face a rapidly declining standard of living. In other words, those of you that are used to going out to eat, doing that kind of crap, you're not going to be able to do that much longer because your dollar ain't going to be worth squat because inflation's going to go up and your dollar's going to keep going down. So what will replace the dollar was the question. And Peter said there's no question that gold is going to reemerge as the monetary unit of choice for the world. Notice it's not just for the U.S. He says for the world. And it's not an accident that gold was money for 5,000 years, and it's been money for so long because it works.
Yeah.
And then Peter said he doesn't think a new gold standard will be imposed by the governments. He says, I think that the free market is going to reject the dollar and other currencies because they're flawed. They're a flawed form of money because they're no longer a store of value.
Yeah.
All it is debt.
Yep.
Right? And Peter pointed out that the other private entities have undercut government monopolies in the past. For instance, FedEx and UPS managed to crack the United States Post Office monopoly on parcel delivery.
Yep.
Think about that one. And yesterday, FedEx, after they laid off and all shut down locations and everything, guess what? Their stock went up yesterday a little bit, right? I think it went up 5% or 7%. That's what actually drove the market up was them and Nike.
Oh, really?
Nike, made over in China. Nike.
All right.
And with the advancement of technology, it's now possible to easily transact business in gold. And blockchain technology makes it possible to tokenize gold and easily transfer it from one party to another.
What have I been telling you, Alan? Tokenized gold. That's the future. I told you about that.
Well, we know
even
that,
Chip's talking about
but even when you tokenize, you've got to have the gold to give to back and forth, right?
Oh, no, because no.
What he's talking about is he's tokenizing gold that can easily transfer it from one party to another. In other words,
you're not sending the physical gold to them. You're sending a digital replica.
No.
Yes,
I
you
get
are.
it. I get what he's saying, but you cannot. I'm totally against more debt. You got to have something backing up that token.
It's not that.
What's backing the token?
So listen, that's why you have a circulating supply
My
and available
question
supply.
is, what is backing the token?
Gold, clearly.
Thank you. That's all I had to say. All right, so that's what I'm talking about. You got to have a gold reserve in order to back the gold token.
Right.
I agree with you.
But there's more into it that I think you're missing. But keep reading. This is great.
No, I'm not reading. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But look, it has to do. A token is something that I get in my hand. But you got to have something that's backing up whatever it is. That's why we're in debt. That's why we have nothing to back up. That's why our deficit just keeps going up because we got nothing to back it up with. We just got a bunch of debt.
Very true.
They just keep printing more and more and more. And believe me, that money that they're printing, it isn't free. Our taxes are paying for it. But guess what? We don't even have enough money in our taxes to pay for the debt we have anymore because our deficit's so damn high anymore.
Bananas.
So anyway, listen to what he says. Bitcoin guys are like, oh, see, blockchain is the death of gold. No, it's going to lead to the rebirth of gold because Bitcoin is what we don't need. Gold is what gives the digital currency its value. I agree. If you've got something that actually is backing it, because I had a guy come to me months ago, and he said, we want to make a token. I'm like, okay, well, how much is this token? And they got me in these conferences, and I was doing these Zoom calls and everything. But they were expecting me to put up all my gold and our vaults and everything up for their tokens. And I'm thinking, you ain't putting a damn thing in except this imaginary token. I'm the one that has the gold and the silver and everything. So what do you got for it? So I started thinking about it. And I'm like, this ain't a very good deal. So it takes a lot to do that. And believe me, I'm talking a lot. So Jay brought up the point that a gold standard facilitated through the blockchain would still depend on third parties for payment processing and gold storage. And Peter argued that we've always depended upon third parties. That's not a problem in a competitive free market. The problem arises when the third party is a government. And he says, we've always been trusting third parties and it's worked. The only time it doesn't work is when the third party is a government, and that's when they screwed us. And Peter said he thinks that the private sector will lead the world back to a gold standard because there ultimately is a demand for sound money. I totally agree with him. And the government has a monopoly on money, and we're being overcharged through inflation to use government money. So the private sector comes up with an alternative. So during this interview, Peter and Jay also talked about inflation. And anyway, it isn't a rocket scientist to figure out what's going on. Protect yourself. Call us. I've given you the number, 800-753-8534. If you're watching the show right now, go and tell somebody about it. Say hi. Rumble us, whatever it is. I don't even know what these things. I just know I appear on there.
Yeah.
Tomorrow is 2 more days before Christmas?
Right.
So close.
This month went by fast.
We're almost into the next year.
I know, it's almost 2023.
A lot of people just probably barely got by, and if they didn't even get by, my thoughts are out there to you. But a lot of people are just barely getting by. Christmas, hell, in New York now, they're talking, Eric Adams is telling people you better mask up for Christmas.
What?
Oh, yeah, put on your mask so you can, yeah. It's unbelievable.
Did you hear how I tricked Dave's son?
Yeah, I heard you when you were bringing him up. Yeah, I heard.
Basically, I walked into him, met up with him in the hallway. He didn't know who I was, and I was just like, you have your vaccination card? Where's your mask at? You're going to have to go back downstairs and grab a mask.
Hey, let me just tell you, I was watching the Kerry Lake trial yesterday. Man.
I don't know how you keep up with these things.
I have to. But the Kerry Lake trial was, oh my God. The judge, first of all, that's preceding the trial, I can't remember his name. But anyway, I really like him. He's very docile. He's very patient. And for what he had to go through,
he's not choosing sides, is he?
No, in fact, he was literally given the long-haired hippie. I mean, Kerry Lake hired this attorney. I don't know, he must be good or something. But he's got hair down to here and big old belly, and
oh wow,
and he could play Santa Claus if he had white hair. But anyway, he was literally, the judge was giving him words to say. I've never seen a judge tell another attorney like how to say their words. It was almost like I was watching a movie where like the kid was learning how to be a lawyer or something, and he was defending the person for the first time. But anyway, that being said, it really went smooth. The judge was really, he was very patient, and his court reporter wasn't so patient. In fact, he was getting upset for his court reporter because it was just, the stuff that was going on was just crazy.
Like what was crazy about it?
Well, I mean, they found that ballots that were actually being submitted were wrong size.
Why is that bad?
Well, because they wouldn't go through the machine, so they'd get rejected, different things. And so they found out a lot of different stuff. You can actually watch it. It's actually live on there right now. I think it's already starting. Not 8:30 or 9:30. But there was a lot of she said, he said. But I'll tell you something. When I watched it, from what I saw, and I was being biased. I was like opening on both sides. Totally looks like Kerry Lake swooped it, took it. And this Hobbs, I don't know. There was one woman, they didn't want her to come in. They had her out in the hallway, and she was one of the whistleblowers, and she actually worked in it. Yeah, and her name was. They kept calling her Miss Honey.
Miss Honey.
Does she look like a Miss Honey?
Oh, really?
Oh, I liked her. I liked Miss Honey. Anyway, Miss Honey, she said they weren't following the legal requirements for the chain of custody. And let me just share with you real quick what Miss Honey had to say, and then we'll call it a day.
All right.
But Heather Honey literally destroyed any. Oh, and they kept trying. Hobbs attorneys. Hobbs has like I don't know how many attorneys on her side, but they all were like schmucks when I looked at them. They were just,
really?
Yeah, just like they didn't look like. They just looked like they weren't telling the truth. But anyway, Heather Honey destroyed any suggestion that Maricopa County followed the law in regard to chain of custody requirements according to the law in the 2022 election. And chain of custody expert on both Runbeck and Maricopa County, she said they weren't following the legal requirements for chain of custody. And there was a chain of custody expert on both Runbeck and Maricopa County, and they weren't following the legal requirements for chain of custody. Anyway, Heather Honey, she shared more on her knowledge on chain of custody when she shared that her understanding is the law mandates that the county recorder is responsible for oversight of drop boxes no matter what day it is during the election. And the law does not permit him to be concerned with this chain of custody on election day. That's nonsense. An expert suggests that the Arizona Elections Procedure Manual shows that Stephen Richer was not being truthful when he said he was not responsible for the oversight of the drop boxes on election day.
So he was responsible.
Yeah, I think he was the one that was in a T-shirt, a beat-up old T-shirt, and he said he was in Panama City, Florida, and he apologized for being in the courtroom on video. I mean, come on. He's not even there. Wonder why they didn't have him in the courtroom. He's vacationing or something in Panama City, and he was apologizing for being, rough looking. I'm not in my suit. Anyway, Heather Honey showed her knowledge and silenced the attorney representing Maricopa County, who ended up with no further questions. They wanted her off the stand, but she was on there for a long time. And expert Heather Honey, investigator and supply chain expert with 30 years experience, sends her defense lawyer packing after she answers his loaded legal question in what appears to be an attempt to intimidate her. And this was let me see if I can show this. I wonder if I can play this. Let's just see. Heather Honey, I love her. She was great. All right, watch this. Let's see if we can play it. Think?
Yeah.
All right, hold on.
You're not in this. There you go. I can hear it playing.
Okay. You can hear it?
Yeah, I can hear it. All you got to do is switch it over.
Oh. I can't hear it. I can hear it. As long as you can hear it.
Are you aware that under Arizona law, a ballot is not actually unlawful if it is the term that's used sometimes is harvested or ballot collection. But if somebody who is not authorized to handle it deposits it, or like what happened at Runbeck, if somebody brings it and inserts it into the stream, but not into a designated authorized drop box. Are you aware that under Arizona law that is not actually an unlawful ballot?
I think the term in the law is an invalid ballot.
Okay. Just 1 minute, Your Honor. Mm-hmm.
Bungled up. He didn't know what to say. She shut him down quick.
Yeah. He tried to say it was legitimate, and she's like, no, it's considered an invalid ballot.
Yeah, and this is not a jury. I think this is the judge's decision on this, right?
Really?
On whether to decide. Yeah, I don't.
Well,
I
there
don't
you
know.
go.
I don't know if there's a
jury
there.
That's a smart thing to do because you don't want you know, these left leaning or these right leaning people siding with one person or the other just because of their political stance. This guy seems like he's pretty neutral on the situation.
Yeah, watch this one. I got one more for you. Hold on, I'll bring one more in. Hold on, we'll bring in one more, and oops, here comes Heather.
Recorder Richard hypothetically were to testify that, oh no, I'm not responsible for drop boxes on election day. Would that be accurate?
It's my understanding, according to the EPM, that it specifically makes the recorder or the recorder's designee responsible for the secure retrieval of ballots deposited in drop boxes. So it would be my understanding that that applies to election day. There is no exception to the requirements for election day.
You know, I tell you something. This will be interesting because right now it's just Hobbs elect. You know, she's not the actual governor right now, from what I'm understanding. Right? No, not until she's governor elect. She's not the actual. She's not the actual governor yet. I don't know until this whole thing goes through. But they rushed this through, and look, it's supposed to be done today. There's supposed to be a decision today, from what I understand.
What?
Yeah, there's supposed to be closing arguments and everything.
How long has this been going on for?
2 days. Yesterday and today. Now, I don't know. I'm not
because they're not dragging this bullshit out.
No, not at all. Hey, listen, it's been good talking to you all. Got to get back on the floor. Give us a call, 800-753-8534 into the call center, or just message us. Tell us you want us to give you a call.